When I first got involved in the pool business, I was fresh out of college. I was technically in my last year of college. I was always interested in what was going on in the industry. As I became involved, I wanted to know more about what was going on. Poured over the magazines, read everything available. At that time, there weren't a lot of publications and books regarding pools. There were a few picture books, but not much. But I would look at the magazines, and then I would hear about read about the upcoming national seminars and those types of things. And as an employee, the prior owner of the company really didn't believe in going to trade shows and learning. I think his model was, we do this thing that we've always done and we'll do it until we're done. And that's really the model that he followed. And there was never a change. In all the years I was with him, there was never really a change in the business idea, the business plan, the growing of the company. It was, unless a sales rep hadn't showed him a new product, he didn't use a new product. There was no sense of, let's learn hydraulics and really understand why we're doing what we're doing. Instead, it was, let's put this pump, heater, and filter onto the swimming pool and build everything exactly the same way. And that was a model that worked for him. But for me, I always wanted innovation. I always wanted, what's the latest? What's the next trend? How could I get ahead of the curve and start figuring out and be part of that next trend? So when the opportunity came to buy the company, and I said yes, and I bought the company, the very first year, and I remember that first year being just a tough financial year. We had scraped together every penny we had to try to even get into owning the company, buying the company, and we were struggling literally week to week whether or not we could make it. And I remember struggling with trying to pay a particular supplier, and it wasn't a lot of money, it was a few $1,000s, but we had decided that we needed to go to a national show. And I remember that sales rep coming to our office looking to try to collect money, and then caught wind that we were going to a national trade show. And him being really upset that we would invest in our future by going to the show and not pay him we were 30 days, it was a 30-day account, and we were at day 30 and hadn't paid him yet, and he was upset that we were not paying him. Instead, we were going to go to this trade show. And first off, what that did was, I knew at a very young age that if he couldn't see beyond that I was doing something to become a better company, to better myself, and therefore be able to do more business with him in the future. And his short-sightedness was this little bit of money that he was a secondary supplier. We weren't buying primary stuff. We were just buying some things from him. And really, that was a potentially growing account for him. But his short-sightedness on that really turned me away, and I never have done business with him since, other than just a few things here and there. As a supply chain, I've never done business with them because of that. And we're going back almost 20 years now. What happened for me was I went to that first show, and I really didn't know why, other than I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be a part of seeing what it was. I'd never been to trade shows before. I didn't have any idea. I'd been to the local home and garden show and that type of thing as a spectator, and I believe one year early on, I'd gone to one of those home and garden shows. We were showcasing our pools way back while I worked for the other owner, and that was my only experience with trade shows. But I went to this national show, this international show, and it was in Phoenix, was the first one I went to. And I got to see the stuff. I got to see all of the things that I had not seen, because remember that if it wasn't shown to us by a supplier specifically, if that's, and not even the supplier, but the sales rep that walked into the office said, hey, here's a new thing, and if I hadn't happened to see it in a catalog that the supplier provided, I didn't know it existed. We didn't have the internet in those days to be able to look things up. Instead, it was, here's what's available based on what's printed in a catalog, and then there's these special order things. Went to the show, saw what was available, took a whole bunch of the classes, totally immersed myself in the experience to learn, thinking how important that was. The following year, there was one of the more regional shows. I went there, and then I went back to the national show again. This time it was in Las Vegas. And seeing it now, the show itself didn't appear to change, But there's a few new products here, a few new products there. But that first, second, and third time you go there, you miss 80% of it. There's too much. It's overwhelming. And the pool shows, the major pool shows are big shows, not compared to other trades, but they're big shows when you go in there and you really don't know what you're doing, what you're looking for. Every supplier that makes pumps, heaters, filters, cleaners, all that pile on are trying to get business. And I always thought that was important. Whether or not I came back with something, whether I had a thing that meant something or not, I always learned something new. I always went into it thinking that there's something else. And it's an investment every year, and I figured that's really important for me. And I've been really surprised talking to a lot of the local pool companies here over the years, built a network of a lot of them. No one goes to the trade shows. No one. I'm like the only guy that would even imagine going to most of these trade shows, and I never could understand that. And initially it was simply to gather information. Yes, to sort of see what's out there, to see what's new. But what I found was it became more of a reunion. The more I saw people, the more from a manufacturer standpoint that they saw me showing up at different shows around the country, not just the most convenient and closest one. We started going to the Canada show, which we're in the Detroit area. It's fairly close to us, but there's this barrier, like, you came to Canada to a show? Wow, like this, there's this huge leap and jump. And yet it's relatively close, easy to get to. The other ones, some of them are travel. If we drive, it's 12 hours to Atlantic City, or we fly to Vegas, or, we've been to the Florida show and the West Coast show and all of these different things, Atlanta. The importance, Chicago for sure, the importance is to see what's out there. Every show is a little bit different. I can tell you that I've thoroughly enjoyed the Canadian show because there's just a different feel about it. There's certainly a different energy, and the people treat you in a different way. So that's something that I make sure it's part of what I do every year, and I have to invest in my future and the future of the company, and that's an investment that's worth it for me. Don't know why most people don't. I guess maybe because status quo is okay, and yet all I ever hear, the mumble and the grumble, is things aren't changing, or there's not enough business, or, not sure. Well, educate yourself. Anyone who's done really well in business over the years, or mass majority of people at least will say that educating yourself personally is really important in that growth success plan. And I do think that being immersed in the industry and part of the show, that become part of these shows and things, is very important. It allows us to connect with other pool companies, been able to build and nurture relationships with pool companies all over the country, as well as manufacturers from all over the country, as well as wholesalers and other people that are trying to do some of the similar stuff that we're doing online. And we connect, and you weave that bond, and that's how you make an industry better, by bringing it together, by creating a cohesive network of people, instead of staying splintered and thinking everyone's your enemy and everyone's your competition. Instead, everyone should be your friend, and everyone should be your buddy right next to you, because the more that we can do together, the more we can change the industry. And that's certainly how I felt all along, is I always wanted to be involved in that. So that's why I always was willing to share my information with the guy that I was bidding against. He could have anything of mine, it was okay. Or somebody on the West Coast, which is completely a different market than me. We're all in this together. And from that standpoint, there's the old saying that when the tide rises, the ships rise with it. And I really think that we rise the industry, and we bring all the ships, we bring all those companies with us if we all work together and do that. So that's my take on shows and why to do it. It's as much as it's the education, it's the being around people of similar thought. It's being within the industry of peers and helping work toward making it a better place. And granted, we're in an industry where there's a lot of ego, and everybody thinks they're the greatest of the world, and everyone thinks that everyone else stinks, and that's okay. You got to separate yourself from that part of it and go for the right reasons. And when you do, it's amazing what happens and how you connect with people and where it can go from there.